the war in Gaza began following the terrorist attack perpetrated by Hamas, 9 months, and the toll of this war is terrible. And I don't think we haven't learned a lot. The only thing that we see is the rise of extremism and a political solution much further away. Everybody's talking about the Middle East today, by the way. The Israeli Prime Minister has talks in Washington. We don't want to counter-program him, but it's important to know that while we are here, the Israeli Prime Minister will be talking to the American Congress or Senate. In Beijing, also yesterday, Palestinian factions had got an agreement brokered by China. And I've seen the Chinese foreign minister, who's someone very busy, taking the time to present this deal together with representative of the Palestinian fractions. This is an important news, and I think that the unity among the Palestinians is a good thing, and we have to support the process of unity among them. In Brussels, we had foreign affairs. We discussed about the situation in Middle East and certainly about the advisory statement or opinion by the International Court of Justice, which is, I think, very important, but without reaching specific conclusions. And I think that in the next councils and the next discussions, the Europeans have to look at what does it mean, this advice, this opinion. How can we be in conformity with what the court says? Because what we see is that the justice, the law, as I said yesterday after the council, is taking the place of the politics. The failure of the politics has created a vacuum that is being not full, but occupied by the court, issuing rulings and opinions. And I think that never the distance between the law and the reality in the ground has been bigger. It's important to take note of these rulings, of these advisory opinions at the highest level of the International Court of Justice, the core of the international law at the United Nations system. But it is also important to understand that the judges, the court, doesn't implement the law. They state the law, but they don't implement it. The implementation of the law belongs to the political actors. But at least we have a guideline. We have a clear position. It couldn't be said in clear terms. It couldn't be said in clear terms. It couldn't be said that the occupation of the Palestinian territories are illegal and that this situation cannot continue. Which are the consequences? Let's see in the next days before the new team takes office, how can we take stock of it? But today we wanted, and by accident it has coincided with Netanyahu in the US, when the Chinese brokering a deal with the Palestinians fractions and with the ruling of the International Court of Justice, kind of a constellations of stars. We were discussing with people who are not in the governments. Maybe some have had responsibilities in the past, but now they are part of the civil society. Some people in the parliaments, on the negotiations teams, today even in the parliament, some of them, people from the, let's say, civil society from Palestine and Israel. I think it's important to develop this kind of dialogue. I will do the same thing this summer in my summer university in Spain, where I invited the Director General of UNRWA together with some also Palestinians and Israelis in order to discuss among them. Because the lack of empathy for the sufferances of the other side has grown so big that we need to establish some kind of dialogue, because the peace will not come if people doesn't want peace. And we have to overcome the hate. We have to overcome the lack of empathy for the sufferances of the others, and if we want to advance in peace. And I know it's difficult, and everybody tells me, don't spend your political capital on that because it's useless. I don't think so. I think if even there is one out 1,000 possibilities of pushing for peace, we have to try to look for it. Especially because we Europeans, we have to be more engaged in that. First, because it's our historical responsibility. We have a historical responsibility on creating the roots of this conflict. And we have to recognize it. And this is a responsibility that we have with both, with Israelis and with Palestinians. Second, because it's in our self-interest. Stability, peace, and prosperity in our neighbors, and they are our neighbors, is in our interest. And certainly, it is not in our interest that Gaza become Mogadishu sur mer, a kind of Mogadishu over the Mediterranean. And this, what may happen if there is not someone intervening in order to avoid it. And third, because we have to be true to ourselves, to our own principles. We say all the time the rule of law, international law, humanitarian law, protection of human rights. And we claim that it is in our DNA, and for good reasons. But these principles are universal, and they apply to the South China Sea, as well as to Ukraine and to the Middle East. You cannot have a selective understanding of what are the rulings or the opinions of the International Court. If we ask someone to abide by International Court in the South China Sea or in Ukraine, we have to use the same requirements when it's about the situation in the Middle East. And I think that the opinion of the International Court is very clear. But we also know which has been the answer of the Netanyahu government, also very clear. These people of the court don't understand anything. This is our land. It belongs to us, and we cannot occupy our land by definition. Well, the history or the interpretation of the history is facing international law. International law says one thing. Some people believe that history says a different thing. And that's what politics has to intervene. And I think that the Europeans, we have to do more. We have to do more. We are doing a lot from the financial and humanitarian point of view. We are the most important financial supplier of resources to the Palestinian Authority, and I hope it will continue. But and also to the people in Gaza, but certainly this is not enough. We need stronger political engagement. We have been discussing with the Arabs group. They came here, they present their views. Happily, we haven't been able to continue these meetings at a collective, with a collective dimension on a kind of a conference, but I know that some member states will try to do that on their side, not as European Union, but as member states. And in the week of UNGA, it will be another occasion, because I remember 1 year ago, September 2023, we had a very good meeting at UNGA. And we presented the day after peace plan, the day after. 1 year later, what is the day after? There is no day after by the time being. But we need a strong engagement, and we are working for the week at UNGA to have the possibility of doing more. But now with this meeting and others that will follow, we'll do another one in Barcelona in October, we try to make the grounds of a discussion between the real actors. And the real actors are people. The real actors are society, people who has been, and maybe they will be, professors, ONG, journalists, former parliamentarians, current parliamentarians, members of the former negotiation team by one side and the other, people with experience who suffer on their direct life the consequences of the occupation, in some cases where they have personal and lively experience, and others who are no longer living in Israel or occupied territories, but have an experience of that. For me, spending 3 hours with you this morning has been very interesting, enlightening. I don't mean that you got me the secret formula to try to solve the conflict, but it's good to listen to all of you and to understand which are the grievances, the fears, the concerns, the blames, the complaints, that one day or another they will have to be solved if we want to bring peace to the Middle East with the long light. It's not a matter of weeks or the months, or even years, but we have to think about the next generation in order to avoid the cycle of violence going from a funeral to a funeral, from a catastrophe to the following one. And this is the purpose that I've been engaged in trying to do, and today is a good example of that. We are here to discuss among us openly, trying to summarize what you have explained during yesterday night and this morning. And once again, thank you for participating in this kind of social experience, laboratory of ideas and confrontations and exchanges.